Hey guys, it's Chris here at Pi Supply. In today's video we're going to assemble the Pi Supply switch. If you haven't seen our YouTube video of the unboxing, you can go check that out on our YouTube channel. So let's get started. So just going to go through some of the components we've got here. Obviously we've got the USB connector there. We've got 3 push button tactile switches. We've got a capacitor there, which is a 220 microfarad. We've got a couple of transistors, a red LED. This will just give us the indication of the power status. We've got some resistors there and a couple of diodes and a 2-pin male connector there as well. Oh, and the relay, sorry. So the relay will do the switching of the power. So this is the circuit board. As you can see, we've already got the micro USB connector on there. All we need to do is solder the remaining components. So first up, we're going to solder the resistors. So as you can see on the circuit board, we've got the resistors labelled from R1 to R6. So we've got 10K, 1K and 22K resistors. You can identify these by the colour bands. So if I just group these together. So I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but sort of the brown, black, orange. And then we've got the red, black, brown. These are the 1K resistors. And then finally we've got the red, orange, which is the 22K resistor. So what we're going to do now, we're going to solder these to the board. So I don't know if you can see, they're all labelled already. So we've got sort of R1 to R6. So what we're going to do first is connect R5 and R4, connect the 1K resistors. So these are brown, black, red. So just push them through the circuit board. It doesn't matter which way it goes because they're not polarized. So push them in and then just bend the pin slightly so it doesn't come out. And then next we're going to connect the 22K resistors. So these are red, orange. And same again, connect them to R1 and R2. And then finally, we've got the R3 and R6 where we're going to connect the 10K resistors. Now we have the resistors connected to the PCB. So a good little tip before we solder it, just going to use a bit of blue tack, just hold them all in place. So just push that on top and make sure it's firmly in place so they won't move. And this will just allow us to solder the resistors to the board without them moving. So just pull the legs up a bit. And we'll just go ahead and solder those. You might need to move the pins around a bit just to get a good soldering angle. Don't worry if you bridge two connectors together. You can, if you've got a solder socket, you can just redo it. Don't need to put too much on, but just make sure you cover the solder pads. So I think I've covered it all there. Maybe a bit too much there, never mind. So once that's done, if you've got a pair of snips like this, just go ahead and start snipping the legs off. So it looks pretty good. So what we're going to do now is solder the red LED to the board. I don't know if you can see there, but there's one leg longer than the other. So the longest leg is the anode and the shortest one is the cathode. So on the circuit where it says D3, so this will be where you need to insert the LED. One of the solder pads is sort of square and one is round. So the square ones are always the cathode. So you need to put the shortest leg in where the square one is and the longest one in the other one. So just pop that in. So once you've got the LED in, just hold it in place with a bit of blue tack or a bit of tape if you've got it. And then just solder the legs on the other side. Like so. And then again, just cut the legs off. And you can see there the LEDs soldered to the board. So next up we're going to do the diodes. So we've got a diode there. So what this does is it allows current to flow from one side to the other, but not in the reverse direction. This is indicated by a white band on the diode. So if you see on the circuit board, we know which way it goes at D1 and 2. There's obviously a bigger white band on one side. So you'll just need to make sure it's that orientation when you insert it into the PCB. So just pop that in. And then the other one into D2. So it's very important to make sure you get it in the right way around when you put it inside the PCB. So again, we're just going to hold those in place with some blue tack, and then we're just going to solder it up. You might want to put a bit more than normal on because the solder pads are a bit larger than the other ones. Like so. And then again we'll just cut the legs off here. And then we have the diodes soldered to the PCB. So next up we've got two transistors. So these are sort of like in a semicircle shape. You've got a flat side and then a round side. So there's a bit of an outline on the PCB as well, so it's pretty straightforward. You just need to make sure the flat sides are facing each other on the inside. So just pop them into the circuit board. And just pull those pins out a little bit.
Before you start soldering, let me stop because I have to stop the cameras.
So as you can see, they've been inserted into PCB and the two flat sides are facing each other. So I don't need a bit of blue tack here, they're pretty firmly in place, so I'm just going to solder the pins on there. It can be a bit tricky this bit because the pins are fairly close together, so just make sure you take your time with this. What you can do is just put a tiny bit of solder on at a time, not too much, like so. So just take your time with that, there's no rush. If you do join the pins, don't worry about it too much. If you've got a solder sucker like this, you'll be able to just remove the solder and then try it again. So again, once that's done, just cut the pins off the end. And now we have the transistors soldered to the board. So next up, we're going to solder the capacitor. This is a 220 microfarad capacitor. This is polarized as well, so you need to make sure it goes in the right way around. So it's got a long leg and a short leg. You'll see on the circuit board there's a little plus sign next to one of the pins. Just make sure the longer leg goes through where the plus is on the circuit board. So just pop that in and push it all the way through. Like so. And that's pretty secure, so I'm just going to go ahead and solder that. And again, just cut those legs off there. And that's the capacitor soldered to the PCB there. So next up, we're going to solder the tactile switches. So these are little push button switches there. These will only go in one way on the circuit board. There's 3 switches in total. So just slot them in, and then we'll solder those up. Just make sure you push them in as far as you can. Like so. And then just solder the legs on the other side. And there we have the push buttons soldered to the PCB there. So now we're going to solder the relay. So this is basically the main switching mechanism of the power supply switch. You'll see there's 4 pins on one side and then 2 pins on the other side, so it'll only go in one way. So just add this to the PCB. You might need a bit of blue tack here just to hold it in place. And then just solder that on the reverse side. The pins are fairly short, so there's no need to cut any pins off there. And as you can see there, the relay is now soldered to the PCB there. So now I'm going to solder the 2-pin male header there. So what this is going to do, we're going to use the jumper cables here. And once you connect the power supply switch to the Raspberry Pi, you'll be able to use the software to do a safe shutdown with the power supply switch. So just put the shorter leg in on the top, and then a bit of blue tack. To hold it in place, and then we'll just solder that in place now. And now we have the header on the PCB there. And now finally we have the USB connector. So again, this will only go in one way. You've got sort of 4 pins on the reverse side, and then it's got 2 larger holes which will hold it in place. So what I'm going to do is solder larger holes. You'll need to apply a fair amount of solder here, just to make sure you cover it. And there we have the USB connector to the circuit board there. And there we have the final power supply switch assembled. So what you do is you connect your main power supply to the micro USB connector here. And then you'd use the shorter cable here. I'll just undo this. And you connect this to the Raspberry Pi, like so. In fact, I've got a Raspberry Pi here. So your main power supply comes in here, goes through the circuit, and then it comes out on this side. So the 3 buttons, we've got an off button, an on button, so this will do a hard on and off. The middle button do a soft off button, so what it'll do is it'll shut down the Raspberry Pi and then it'll switch off. This is providing you've connected the cables here to the GPio pins on the Raspberry Pi. If you go to the website and go to powersupply.com, on the main product page for the power supply switch, there's a link there to the software tutorial guide. So you'll be able to check that out as well. So thanks very much for watching, guys. If you have any questions about the assembly guide today, pop them in the comments box below, or you can contact us via the pysupply.com website. Thanks very much for watching, and until next time, I'll see you then.